Hi, I'm Wendy Lowy Sloan, and this is What's Up with Wendy's podcast. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I began my career in New York City as a television producer for talk show legends Phil Donahue and Geraldo Rivera. And for the last decade, I've used these experiences to create my unique style in interviewing hundreds of A-list celebrities, newsmakers, comedians, musicians, reality stars, fitness and nutrition experts, best-selling authors, and so much more. So I hope you enjoy this wide variety on my podcast. I hope you'll share and subscribe. And again, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to this edition of What's Up with Wendy's podcast. If you've ever struggled with gut health, hormone imbalance, mood swings, or you're just curious about any of this, and even poop we're going to be talking about. My guest today, she's the CEO of Nuvitru Wellness. She's board certified clinical nutritionist. She's passionate about women's health, especially gut health. We're going to be talking about everything to do with the gut, also hormone imbalances and foods to support hormones and so much more. Lahana Vigliano is going to be joining me. You won't want to miss this episode. My special guest today, CEO of Nuvitru Wellness and board certified clinical nutritionist. She is passionate about women's health, especially gut health. We will also be talking about women's hormones, hormone imbalances, and food to support hormones, and so much more. This is so right up my alley. And every single person that I know, we always talk about our gut, our stomach. Why are we having bloating? What's going on with our hormones? What's happening to us? What's happening to our bodies? There's so much to talk about. So I'm thrilled to welcome to my show for the first time, Lahana Vigliano.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Me too. My husband jokes I can't get into a conversation with anyone without talking about a bodily fluid, which is semi-accurate.
I didn't want to really say that in the introduction, but I think we're going to talk about poop too.
Yes. I'm here for it.
But before we get into all that, because I have so many questions for you, and I'm sure you have so much information to give us, can you take us back to tell us a little bit about you? I know you're a mom of two, and you're married, and I just want to hear how this passion of yours started and how it all began.
Yeah. So I was originally pre-med because I knew I wanted to be in healthcare since I was like 5. Like I knew I just loved helping people with their health. In my eyes, I was like, I want to be a doctor. So I was pre-med all the way up until I think I was, I don't know, maybe like a year and a half in. And I really started realizing what was being taught was like a pill for every ill. And functional medicine, naturopathic, all that stuff really wasn't a thing. It makes me sound old, but it wasn't a thing as it is now. Like everyone knows, oh, there's like integrative options. So I was just like, well, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to just give pills to people to basically put a Band-Aid on their health issues. But another pivot that really helped me question, my long-term goals was becoming a mom at 17. So I don't even know. Like me and my husband, we like look and we're like, why did we do that? I'm like, I have no idea. We just it happened. Okay. Which we love. I actually absolutely adore being a young mom. It's one of my favorite things I think in the world. I can still be in,
Yeah.
My son's friends think I'm the coolest, I think. Anyways. And so being a mom so young, I wanted to start raising a family. I wanted my kids not to be another statistic in the world. I don't know. I think that just maternal instinct kind of took over. So that with kind of what I was being experienced in pre-med shifted me into how can we prevent things? And that's where I found nutrition and honestly food is medicine and herbs and just more natural things. And I think it's amazing because there's so much evidence behind it too. And so that's really what shifted me into where I am today.
It's so interesting. And when I think back, I was like, okay, I'll tell you my backstory a little bit. So a few years ago, I'm a little older than you, but a few years ago, I was having like all these problems with my stomach, my gut, my belly, like bloating, not feeling right, like feeling so much pressure down there, and kept going to doctor after doctor. This is probably everybody's story. Kept going to doctor, this doctor, that doctor. Oh, it's fine. Oh, it's age. Oh, it's this. Oh, eat better, diet, exercise, all that other stuff. Okay. But I don't think that's enough because I think that sometimes regular doctors don't pull back all the layers and get to the root of the issue. So they just like put a Band-Aid on something. So this was going on and on for me. So right before COVID, my gastro doctor did finally say, I think you have a dairy intolerance. So I got off dairy. Within 2 weeks later, I was literally down 8 pounds in my gut.
Wow.
It took 8 to 10 pounds. It was like remarkable. I never felt better in my life. Fast forward, I'm still off dairy, and now I'm back to where I used to be. So I don't understand the problems.
Yeah.
And yes, I have these hormone issues, and I have imbalances, and I'm, through menopause, all that stuff, and I have issues going to the bathroom. If we're going to be honest about everything,
Yeah.
so it's so difficult, and I think for women especially because our bodies change so much. During when we're younger, then during childbearing years, and then after we have our children, and so
Yes.
on and so on, right?
Oh my gosh. Your story is like one in a million. Like, not what, well, no, I just said that wrong. Your story is very common. I hear this
Yes.
really, really often. And a lot of the times, and I know we can get into this, but a lot of the times when we want to use diet, we start taking away certain foods and do make us feel better. We take away wheat or dairy or whatnot. But it really doesn't solve the root of why you're even tagging these foods as dangerous or why you're even reacting to these foods. Why are they producing inflammation? And that's kind of what we do, like with comprehensive stool testing, is like really peeling back of like what the microbiome looks like. But outside of that, I think too that is something we have to keep in mind as women. We are truly on a roller coaster. Definitely on a roller coaster when we're in that reproductive stage of life. Literally
Mhm.
every week is different. Whatever part of the roller coaster are we on? Are we killing it? Or are we like all the way down at the bottom? But in our life too, yes, we are on a roller coaster because that the classic saying of what worked for you when you were 20 won't work for you today. And that's absolutely correct. And so that's why it's, well, my diet didn't change or this didn't change, but like your body still changes, your hormones change, like all these things change. And we need to be able to, and I think this is where the saying came from, but we really need to go with the flow based on where we are at in life. And that's
Mhm.
another reason why we can't compare our journey to your Facebook friend, Kathy, of like,
Right.
why did this diet or whatever work for her, but it didn't work for me, is because you are totally two individual people with different bodies and potentially maybe in the different season of life too.
Right. And what do you think about, before we get into all the other stuff, like all the juice cleanses and all these diets, like the Shakeology and those kind of things? What are your thoughts on all that?
I think some of the stuff, especially when it has like really nutrient dense ingredients, I don't think it's technically bad per se, but I really think it kind of deviates away from some of the foundational things to do of like using a shake to replace a meal. Like honestly, to make sure I eat enough, and that's a huge problem I'll probably talk about that I see in women. I need 3 meals and a shake, and so I just think it deviates away from that bio individuality a little bit. And for us in our practice, we definitely are not extreme in like in the diet spectrum from vegan to carnivore. We're somewhere in the middle. I very, very find it rare that people need to be in one of these like really extreme categories. Potentially for like a healing season, maybe, but even we haven't had to put someone that extreme.
Mhm.
I just think it really just confuses people because there's so many options out there. And like half the time, like people don't need that. Like people don't need keto. I see so many women who are stressed beyond and they are like trying to be low carb and that's only hurting them and their thyroid in the future. I don't know, it's just there's so much more gray area with nutrition. And I don't know if it's social media, but I think we try to DIY it and we need to realize like it's so nuanced. Like there's so many like customizations that you should be giving yourself to help you live optimally.
Let's talk about the role of gut health,
Mm,
and how it plays in hormones and our mood.
mm.
First of all, let's talk about the gut. Like, let's tell us about the gut.
I love gut because their gut is the foundation to so many things. It houses our immune system. It creates neurotransmitters, our serotonin, our dopamine, and those influence mood. So it is, oh my gosh, it is where we digest foods. It is where we absorb our nutrients. It is where everything truly starts, which is why we like to like look at that first, even before touching like sex hormones or all these other things. The gut is housing, honestly, we're just a big walkie bacteria, but it's housing like a ton of bacteria and it's really its own community. And we have to make sure that we are nourishing that community correctly, because it definitely influences so many things: autoimmunity, like you said, our moods, how we feel. Even outside of GI stuff, I see people with like chronic migraines and they have gut issues. And once you focus on gut issues, migraines are gone. Like it, I think, just really connects all the different parts of the body. And I think that's where like Western med kind of fails a little bit is that we're so focused on like deviating the body, like dividing it up into like brain, heart, gut, when really like they all kind of come together. So you have to make sure that you're addressing and looking at everything. But I just love the gut because it's truly where everything starts.
I love the gut too. I just wish I could heal it.
Yes. And that looks a little different for everyone, but in the sense of how it connects to hormones, going back to the microbiome, there is an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. And when your bacteria, we call it dysbiosis, but it basically is just an imbalance of like your good bacteria, which is like your probiotics, and then we call them opportunistic bacteria because they will always be in your gut, E. coli, all these not I don't say not so great bacteria. They kind of are, but they will take opportunity to overgrow and throw a party and mess things up. So we call them opportunistic bacteria. So we need basically more cops than robbers. That's another way to say it. But when they get overgrown and the balance is off, this is going to increase an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. And what beta glucuronidase does is,
How do you even say that word so nicely?
I think I said it so much in my life. That's probably why. But when we're done with like our sex hormones, like estrogen, for an example, we push it through the liver and right, we're all done with it. So it needs to exit the body. And so one of the ways it exits the body is through pooping, is getting rid of it. But when you have this high enzyme, it's kind of like it's one of those people that love to party and they never want the party to stop. So basically it opens up the little taxi door, talking to your estrogen saying, hey, come back inside the body because it's just fun back here. So it's going to basically unpackage your estrogen, bring estrogen to be reabsorbed into the body. And then now we're seeing like a lot of estrogen dominance. So estrogen dominance is like having too much estrogen or maybe not enough estrogen or not enough progesterone in regards to how much estrogen you have. But anyway, so that's like a connection there of really stopping that reabsorption, focusing on nourishing that microbiome, getting it back into balance, and then being able to, let your estrogen leave the body as it should. So that's like a little connection there, which is really cool.
How do you know? How would somebody know if you have too much estrogen, too much progesterone, too much of that in your body?
Testing for sure. Because honestly, like when someone asks me what are the symptoms for hormonal imbalances, they're like weight gain, irregular painful cycles, chronic fatigue, acne, insomnia, low libido, hot flashes, mood swings, hair loss. Like, I mean, the symptoms are such a big range. And honestly, a lot of them overlap. So you might not have sex hormones. Maybe it's adrenals, maybe it's thyroid, maybe it's blood sugar. A lot of them overlap. So I like to just take the guesswork out of it and just test comprehensive. I think this is where I love integrative and functional medicine because their labs are so expansive and it shows so much more than what you normally would get through a doctor. And I love doing like dried urine hormone testing. I love doing stool testing, just really getting to know your body. So testing before guessing for sure.
Isn't it interesting? Because every doctor is like, oh, well, just get on this hormone pill. Well, how do you just get on a hormone pill when you don't even know if I have too much of this or too much of that? That's going to really mess up your system.
Yeah,
I think that's where functional medicine is so much better than the regular medicine because they don't really, like we talked before, they don't peel back the layers.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that like there's no need for Western medicine because there totally is. Like, don't come at me with a broken leg. Like, I absolutely will not help you. But I think that they do.
Talking about your gut, and yes,
yes. I think that we need to start putting like the nutrition and lifestyle stuff as one of our first tackles and changes versus like a pill. But I will say, if you are in menopause, so many women come to us like, what can I do? How can I revitalize my hormones?
Oh, the hot flashes.
Unfortunately, your ovaries do retire. Like you cannot work against Mother Nature. They do retire. Your adrenals take over a little bit, so you can support your adrenals if that is an issue. Sometimes it's honestly just because you have low hormones, and that is just season of life. So I will say you will need to work with an OBGYN that does like bioidentical hormones if you're really struggling with symptoms and you do need some hormone support. So that is something that I'm sorry, we just can't fight against Mother Nature.
We just can't do it. And so many of us complain of bloating and gas. Like, what do we do for that?
It honestly gets down to the root of like, what is your microbiome? What's your bacteria? Do you have a parasite? Do you have a yeast overgrowth? Are you having issues digesting your food? So is